Hey, everyone, we're live. It is Sleepy Reader here, Damien, and I am with my old buddy, over here, Matt.
Hey.
42Q, it says. Hey, my favorite of your many personas.
I remembered.
So I've got my Guinness
That's a good idea.
and some water.
Well, then I'm going to have to do my little, here we go, Heritage Hills honey-flavored bourbon whiskey.
That's much more serious. I've been wondering, do they have to stop producing alcohol during this time?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, if you think about it, right, a lot of what alcohol is sitting in a still or in a barrel or, in a carboy or something, depending on the scale of everything. So, I mean, yeah, it's going to hold some stuff up, but I imagine it shouldn't hold things too much, though. I'm willing to bet if a batch was up, someone would sneak in to move it, because that's too much money to go to waste just to not be there.
But are there more important things that need to be shipped? Although it's interesting because I went to Amazon to buy something frivolous, and they said, well, it's going to be a month because we're prioritizing things. So I went to Walmart.com and bought it instead and got it in 2 days. So I don't know what the story is in terms of the rules or the whatever. Maybe Amazon just feels and Amazon's probably under a lot more demands are being made of them than Walmart.com.
Which is weird because they're both big.
Although what I bought seemed very important to me. It arrived today.
Okay.
Because I need things to entertain my daughter. And her best friend has this thing that they call a hoverboard, which is really a mini Segway.
Okay.
You've probably seen people rolling around on them. When they go by quickly, you think they're on a skateboard, but they aren't really. They're on kind of this thing that maintains its balance no matter what you do.
Oh, it's like it has one wheel or something.
It has two wheels. There are one-wheeled ones too, and I don't know how those work. But this kind has two wheels, and if you tilt your feet forward, it goes forward. If you tilt your heels back, it goes backwards, and it keeps you upright. So it's got to be the same technology as the old Segway.
Is she a fan of Back to the Future?
She's never seen it.
Why?
That's a good question. Although the aspects of him worrying about his mom being attracted to her might be disturbing.
It's family fun for all ages. I don't understand what you're worried about.
But just generally, I've never thought of trying to show it to her. After total failure to get her to like Star Wars, I kind of
don't like Star Wars anymore. So,
but everyone likes Back to the Future.
I guess.
Maybe now is the time to show it to her
before they ruin it.
Before they do a remake, with
they've been talking about it, I guess, because it's a
probably
movie
with a female lead, which would actually make it more.
But actually, yeah,
for my particular person, I am gonna try and send this out to Twitter since that seems to be.
Oh, can you shoot me a link too?
I've got I'm finding it under a different account of mine, so hopefully I can find it.
Okay.
Lately, I've found that sometimes it's hard to. Not all live streams appear in.
Well, there's usually like a delay of about.
Sometimes there's a delay, but sometimes some just literally don't appear. Like a couple of my Portland friends recently have done live streams, and I just happened to realize they'd done them because I went to their channel, but they never appeared in my subscription timeline. Oops.
Yeah.
So YouTube's just yet again acting weird. Yeah, it's not there on my channel. Oh, there it is. There it is. One person is watching. Hello, whoever you are.
It's probably you.
Well, I've just started watching now.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to post it to Twitter. This is really bad live TV.
It's the best kind of TV behind the scenes.
Hanging live with not Damien, not Kane. I get disconcerted every time I see your Twitter feed, actually.
Why? Because I'm not you.
Just because I see my name, you know how your name is more noticeable to you than any other word. So I see Damien before I see not. But I've gotten used to it now. But when you first did it, it was funny because I kept, wait, what's my name doing there?
Here we go.
So I am wondering, will I be able to will the supply of Guinness slow down for a while? Hey, Sylvia P. I'll have to check out and see if you have a channel because I don't know you from the past. But glad you could join us. So we're just going to talk comics casually, I guess. Anything up with you that other than comics that you're trapped at home also, right?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking to Sylvia for whatever reason. That's where my mind went.
Sylvia can tell us too.
I'm trapped at home, working from home, which has put me on eBay, which has been a little dangerous for my wallet. It's funny because, obviously we need to worry about the virus and everything. But aside from that, by and large, things have been kind of nice. I get to work from home. I get to relax a bit. I don't have to deal with too much. And the whole social distancing thing, honestly, has made a very little impact on my life. So,
right. Well, and so I forget, were both you and your wife working at offices, or was she staying at home?
No, she's in a split. Her office allows her to work from home most of the week. This week, obviously, it's been the entire week. But yeah, she kind of goes with her parents, and they kind of help take care of the kiddo while she's working and doing some of the kiddo stuff. And yeah, so I don't know, it's been a decent balance, all things considered. We're obviously worried about if something should pass to them, it could be bad. But beyond that, and of course, part of our some of our friends have some horror stories, and it's not good. But for us personally, no reason to complain. We're doing okay.
Yeah. Well, and my family is certainly fine. Good. But I'm going a little crazy because my daughter's going a little crazy. It's different having an 11-year-old home versus a baby at home.
Right.
So I'm doing my best to be her constant companion, but it just makes me feel like feels like I actually have less time. So I have all these comics. And I'm like, yeah, we're stuck at home. I should be reading comics, but I should be reading comics right now instead of talking with you because I have still not read the comic that you and I are supposed to talk about. So Sylvia P says she has no channel. She's just watching. I ordered frivolous items from Amazon that didn't have restriction. Shipment coming Saturday. Well, that's good news.
Maybe you ordered right before.
Maybe there was something else about the hoverboard that, but all the hoverboards I looked at, were going to be 20 or 30 days out in delivery on Amazon. But we got it today. It's charging. You have to charge it for 6 hours. So tomorrow, it'll be something exciting to do. Go out and play with this hoverboard. And hopefully, in this time of separation, she'll gain some skills like being good at her hoverboard that she can do with her friends when she can see them again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I imagine that's crazy. We're trying to keep Dean entertained. We're not necessarily supposed to do it, but I'm taking him for a walk. Which is, when I say a walk, we're in a weird cul-de-sac situation that kind of, if you view the streets from like a bird's eye view, it'd be like a pitchfork of 3 cul-de-sacs in a row, and that's about as far as we're wandering, just kind of wandering in circles. I think
as long as you're not walking in a large group of people, I think you're fine. And as long as you're not, the sad thing is I guess you're not supposed to touch metal and stuff like that, like things in playgrounds.
We're not going to a playground.
Here they've shut down the playgrounds, which was kind of the last fun thing we'd been doing.
Yeah.
And at 11, she isn't that interested in playgrounds until she has nothing else to do. Then they became more interesting.
Right. Man,
But
I'm trying to
anyway.
think, at 11, I probably would have been pretty okay with being shut indoors all day, as long as my parents lifted the hour video game limit.
I probably would have been too. But the thing is, when you look back at your 11-year-old perceptions, but when you're a parent, you see a child who's, well, we didn't have video games when I was a kid, but with my daughter, so in my day, just watching TV all day, or in her case, doing other screen things all day, they get pretty cranky and depressed after a few days of that. It seems like the greatest thing to you when you're that age, and you can do it.
You're fighting for every hour or whatever for it. Yeah.
But when you've had no other social interaction and you're just playing Sims and watching YouTube and some other games she plays, can be tough.
Cool.
Well, one interesting thing that happened to me today online is I responded to someone who said, "Oh, they don't publish no one will publish these black and white comic book magazines like they used to." And I have it on good authority from everyone I've talked to. And I don't know if this person was a comic book professional, but so I posted the Creeps on his Twitter, in his Twitter feed, saying, well, they may be making a comeback, because the Creeps is, this basically retro black and white magazine, and the company's about to start another magazine called Carmilla, which is going to be their female vampire host of another horror magazine. But they were talking about Savage Sword of Conan, and apparently Jim Zub was in the and you know who Jim Zub is, the writer.
Yeah, I know he's a creator writer.
And he's writing Conan at the moment, and I think he was writing Avengers a while ago, and might be doing other stuff.
Wasn't he doing Savage Avengers or something?
No, that's Jerry Duggan. Hey, Comics on the Mind. Good to see you, or see your texts.
Hey, thing.
I think I've relatively recently started subscribing to Comics on the Mind videos, and I've seen him on other people's Hangouts too. Cool guy.
Cool.
So if anyone's watching or watching later, check out his channel.
There you go. Fan of Savage.
So anyway, Jim Zub was in the thread, and he's like, I never heard of this comic. I want to write for that. And I was just kind of shocked that he never heard of this. I'm not a professional comic book guy. I know all about, I've been reading the Creeps for many years now.
I would take
Now, I know a lot of people don't know about it.
I take a stab and I bet you know the industry better than most professionals do, like on that level.
In a certain way. I mean, they probably know who all the important editors are and publishers and who are the upcoming.
But I mean, as far as like what's on the market beyond kind of the big 3 or 5 now, however you want to count it. And I think a big part of that is honestly just because you're in Portland, it's so much easier to run across this stuff.
Well, I ran across the Creeps in Barnes and Noble out in the suburbs. That's how I first found it. And then eventually they got distribution to comic book stores, and I added it to my pull list. But so for me, it's just, I don't know if you do this, but you're in a bookstore and you go, hey, I wonder what comics they have at Barnes and Noble, because I know they have some. And I went and looked, and there's the Creeps. So it's not that hard. But I know most people don't know of the existence.
If I'm feeling like I need a massive influx of comics, I turn to eBay.
Well, I'm not talking about a massive influx of comics. I'm saying if you are in Barnes and Noble anyway, you're waiting for your mom to look up the Encyclopedia of Gardening or something. Or I'm sorry, your mom's passed away. Your dad.
I was taking what you meant. Yeah.
So you're waiting for that other person, so you can just go look. Comics on the Mind said that Savage Avengers is awesome, and I totally agree with him. I never thought it would be, but it's one of my favorite Marvel comics. And maybe the best Conan comic at the moment.
I can't read it because it's past my budget. After all the Spider and X books, I just
you are trapped in the Spider and X hole.
I am. I really was kind of wondering what to do because it's getting to be a bit much.
Well, which is bigger, the X hole or the Spider hole?
It's close, but it's the X-hole right now because they're pushing so many X-Men books because of the success.
Right.
It's not that I want to blame them necessarily, but I think they need to know to like keep it within an amount, because once they tip over, it's going to be a house of cards.
Yes. Yeah, right. If you make too many books, they all sell badly, and then you cancel them all instead of keeping. You can imagine they could keep 4 good books going, maybe, but when it's 6 or 8,
I'd settle for 6.
Comics on the Mind is in the X hole too, so there are many people in that X hole with you.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm swearing, but
no, it's. And I haven't caught up on this last maybe couple of weeks. I didn't go to the comic shop 2 weeks ago because everything was breaking out and I didn't quite know what to do. Oh. And also it was like snowing. So I was like, I just don't want to mess with it. Went in this week because it was the last week, before the comics industry implodes, apparently.
That is a fear. I don't know how realistic it is or not.
I don't know. I honestly think a shakeup might be good if anyone can realize that maybe they need to push past Diamond or look at alternative.
I mean, my worry about shakeups is they usually just shake out the small comic book publishers and some of the shops, and DC and Marvel keep going.
See, I think this is an opportunity for the smaller publishers and whatnot to maybe get together and look at maybe another distribution model, or maybe just a competitor to Diamond, because they're not as invested. So,
right, a competitor to Diamond certainly would be good. So I have my main shop, which I like, but it's really small, so they don't carry a lot of stuff on the racks. So I go to my main shop, and then anything that I learn about from YouTube or something that I want to read, I'll go hunt it down at Excalibur Books. You've probably been to both these shops with me when you visited.
Right. Well, God.
But anyway, Excalibur, because of a screw up at a Diamond, didn't receive their books for a whole month. Some computer problem, and a business that needs to compete, unlike Diamond, would fix the problem. They would go in their warehouse and manually get the people their comics. But all they did with Excalibur, which is the biggest comic book shop in Portland, is say, sorry, we'll work on it. And so 4 weeks later, they still were behind on their comics. So that really highlighted to me, there needs to be a competitor to Diamond to make Diamond better, and hopefully to give people an option if they don't like Diamond.
Well, and there's so much waste Diamond does through their policies of like how they want to do returns, or how they handle damaged books, that just murders the industry and destroys opportunity for bringing in new readers, or bringing in readers to new books, and also just taking advantage of stuff out there. I've seen it where comics need to be returned and they buy, 50 copies of a book so they can get the one, incentive cover. Yeah. And so they have 30 books left over when it's said and done, roughly, ripping off the front covers so they can mail the front covers because it's lighter to ship that back than to not. Whereas if you could do anything with those, like if they're just going to burn those books, like if the comic store could hand them out at that point or something, some for a quarter.
There's obvious reasons why the comic store should not.
But I'm saying, like, if they're going to be effectively burned anyways, and now the comic store can treat them as collateral, like they have to fold a corner or something, right? So it's not a collector's item. But then people can check out a book at a huge discount and grab some books.
Comics on the Mind says they could donate those books to schools.
Oh, yeah, great. Schools or education programs that use comics. There's a lot of those, especially in Colorado. Anything would be better than just destroying books wantonly and then they're just gone. All that stuff is wasted.
That's not even the main problem with.
Oh, no, it's not. It's not the main problem. It's just a super obvious
because returns aren't even very common anymore. And so that was a problem with comic book distribution all along. When I was a kid, there were stores that illegally sold comics with their covers ripped off, and they were ripping off the comic book companies by doing so.
Oh, what a lot of
maybe Comics on the Mind as a teacher. He says his students would love them. If you're a teacher, I salute you, because I think teachers are amongst the hardest working job and
no
often thankless jobs out there. But I digress. So anyway, that particular situation at my store just highlighted, or not my secondary store, highlighted how Diamond was ruining their business with basically doing nothing about it.
Yeah. And I just feel like any competition would force, it wouldn't make everything perfect, but it would make some of the obvious stuff happen to make it better, which would just help everyone. When you're wasting that much, there's a loss on everyone's side. Nothing good's coming out of that. So I don't know. We don't have to get into the whole comic industry thing.
Right.
I just
So, and this all started because I just thought it was funny that these comic pros didn't know of the existence of this magazine. They should watch my videos. They would know more.
I forget who I was talking to one time, but I kind of brought up like, oh yeah, like they did something like that in heavy metal I saw recently, and they're like, that's still coming out. It's like, yeah, no. They only know what they know, and the industry isn't really good about sharing with each other, sharing cross company stuff. So if it's outside kind of the major store distribution, there's all sorts of comics you bring up that I never hear or see about because my shop struggles to get by, and so I have to be very particular with what they order. So a lot of the Friends stuff I never see. So it's a rough go.
I mean, it's partially being part of this online community that I hear about a lot of this stuff.
Totally.
I mean, I sometimes pick up stuff that other people find out about, but it happens the other way around too.
Oh, sure.
I'm totally not. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying that's the whole part of community, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the great things about the internet. Not talking about the negatives, the positives of the internet.
What? It's crazy.
Speaking of obscure black and whites, I went to that shop that had no new. I keep going each week to see if they get the new comics, because I have some. It kind of has cut me off a bit from some of the more obscure things that my regular shop doesn't get. Mm-hmm. So I started buying their old 1994s. Have you ever heard of this one?
Nope.
You've heard of Warren Publishing, right? Who did Eerie and Creepy. Towards the end of Warren's existence, they did 1984 and then 1994, trying to, I guess, grab the heavy metal market. And their idea was that what sold heavy metal was sex. So these are science fiction sex comics.
Okay.
And they're incredibly beautifully illustrated. Here, I guess I'll make myself a little bigger.
If you know what I mean.
They're incredibly beautifully illustrated, and they have ridiculously bad sex stories in them.
Oh, cool.
So I got
any branding
and I'm eyeing getting more. And since there was nothing else to buy at that shop, I said, well, I'll throw them my dollars now. And there's something you don't see much black and white when you do see black and white art, it's like in Terry Moore art or something. It's very clean, but this old sort of full of grayscale kind of artwork, you don't see that anymore.
Where do you see that? I think European.
Right. Well, they were trying to be European. They were trying to be like heavy metal, as I said.
Oh, I saw the Brazilian. So yeah.
Is that what you think of?
No, I meant
that's
but
true.
I meant
back in the 80s, the Brazilian.
The way they grayscale is more what I think the European bit is. So yeah.
Well, but actually, all the 70s black and white comics, to a degree, looked like this. Oh yeah, thanks. My Black Panther shirt, I love it. Comics in the Mind noticed my shirt, so yeah, I know you probably like. Even though I think you like sexy comics, I don't know if you'd like these that much. They're just so silly. Although there is this beautiful looking Frank Thorne series that they have in every issue called Gita. which I haven't read it yet, but it's nice to look at. He's very breast obsessed, so sometimes he has characters with 4 breasts just to get more breasts in.
I mean, I've seen more, but I gotta start somewhere.
I wonder if anyone's ever gotten plastic surgery to get extra breasts. That's an interesting one. Somewhere out there, someone must have done that.
Well, if not, you can be the first.
I will be the first. There's that Brazilian again. Maybe this is this.
Hey, Surly Tim's Fun Bunker.
Hey, Surly Tim. Good to see you. Insomnia for the win, he says. I'm suspecting Surly Tim is on the East Coast, so yeah, this is quite late his time, if he is on the East Coast. And I don't know where Comics on the Mind exists. Online. So you did get to go to your shop today?
Yesterday, actually.
Yesterday. Oh,
they were closing down. They said they weren't necessarily going to be able to do it today because Colorado, Polis, our governor, has been more on top of things. So they're saying, like, we're normally not supposed to do it, but given everything, you come in today or you might not be able to.
Right. My shop got their books yesterday, but said they weren't organized enough. And I think they were breaking the law or what it is. I don't even know if it's which things are at a legal level and which things are
well, they'd be breaking order.
Request everyone to do it. It's hard to keep track, but and my shop is so tiny. There's never more than 2 people in it at once anyway. We're closed down now.
I did what I could and found some back issues that needed filling, so I placed those in my order before I went in, so I could try to throw them a few extra shekels to hopefully tide them over.
Yeah, I bought quite a bit extra too. My shop owner is quite distressed. He says he has very high rent, and his landlord's allowing him to postpone paying the rent, but not giving him any discount or anything.
Mine is giving a discount of 50%, but he's like, next month, if we're closed most of the month, it won't matter. So,
well, 50% is better than paying 100%, unless he's just going to have to close up forever.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's all in question.
See, I thought my guy's landlord would give him 50% too, maybe enough, so they both sort of share the economic pain. Because you may have more economic pain if everyone shuts down at once. There's going to be a lot of empty shops.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering if that's going to come on the other end. Because I mean, if you forewent a month, considering having a shop there to have income the months after versus trying to get someone new in during what's going to be something of a depression is
right.
Play the long game.
Yeah. Well, Surly Tim says it's the law in Ohio. His shop shut down for however long it goes. And he says he's paying him via credit card, so he can have a little something. So maybe he's shipping him some comics. Something like that. My guy said that if I wanted any trades or anything, I could contact him and knock on the door and he would bring them out to me. I don't know if I really need any more to read. I have plenty to read. I just am addicted to the weekly new comic book thing. I'm now realizing that it's a hobby in and of itself, that desire to kind of keep up with the new comics.
Right.
Just read old ones.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm bummed about it, but I'm just trying to maintain positivity and realize, I have plenty of comics to read, so make do. You'll have time to read The Hood.
Yes. Well, I don't. Actually, I hopefully will find time to read The Hood.
Okay.
Another thing I got in the mail was, or maybe this is an older one. Yeah, actually, I've got the wrong Jack Kirby collector here. I got a new one, but it was with the Silver Surfer on the cover. Oh, well. A weird thing that I got on eBay. Have you ever heard of the Comics Buyer's Guide?
Yeah.
For comic fandom. It's hard. It's expensive. And I finally for years, I've been going on eBay and looking for copies of this because I got it as a kid. I subscribed to it for like $2 or something for a year from ads in the comic books.
I'm gonna have to run off real quick. I'll be back.
Okay. And so, well, Matt won't hear this, but so I bit the bullet and I paid $30. Or for some of them, I paid 15 and some 30 for these old pieces of newsprint that are just ad zines. Comics on the Mind says more time to collect Silver Age goodness, more time to read my old Silver Age comics. I've been collecting a lot of Bronze Age DC horror that I need time to read. Yeah, they had wonderful covers on the buyer's guide. So just in my desperate old man nostalgia for my earliest experience with fandom, I decided to bite the bullet and spend the money. I think I bought them in the end, not off of eBay, but from mycomicbookshop.com, because I trust them better, and the prices were about the same as they would be on eBay, maybe even a little less. It's hard to say, because the condition is always better from my comic shop. So I've got a bunch of these buyer's guides, and it was through the buyer's guide that I, had a sense of a fandom out there that I just wouldn't have known about as a 12-year-old kid. And I would look at the ads back then and hardly buy anything. I would sometimes send away from some fanzines. I would get these like mimeographed and ditto fanzines from people just slightly older than me. There's a cool one. I guess it's not Flash Gordon. It says by Conway, but I don't know what Conway that would be. It's certainly not Jerry Conway, I don't think. Now this one looks like maybe it has a few articles. They would sometimes have a few articles in them. I'll probably do a video going over them in more depth. But yeah, part of a piece of comics history, as Comics on the Mind goes, I'm very interested in comics history, and the history of fandom now is starting to interest me more and more, just because it, this is the modern version of fanzines that we're doing now, and I, had a little bit of interaction with the world of fanzines back in the 70s, so I'm just sort of curious. The fanzines from the 60s are really expensive to buy. Here's a Dan Adkins cover of The Destroyer, back when The Destroyer was cool. Here's some examples of the kinds of ads. Like, there was no other way, I guess, to buy back issues unless you happened. Well, I would get some back issues like from farm stands and things, but so people would just list all the back issues they had with prices, and you would hope they were still available. Boy, it's hard to see that print. It's old typewriter print that's been reduced in size. Fantastic Four. And they list a whole bunch of Fantastic Four starting from number 67, all for 25 cents. What? Really? Oh. But the Cull, like Cull number 1, goes for $2. Anyway, it was kind of amazing, just this giant newspaper full of ads for comic books that came out every other week, I think. Now, they would also sell other things. Here's a whole bunch of nostalgia zines and reprint kind of magazines. So while you were gone, Matt, I mentioned that I spent a lot of money to get these old newspapers full of ads because my nostalgia was growing.
How much were they?
Hey, Gore Vidal. Between like $14 and $30 a piece.
Jiminy crickets. All right.
And I spent years hoping to find them cheaper, but I just couldn't.
Been there.
Surly Tim says CBG kept me sane while I was living in a very rural area back in the 90s. Yeah, it was probably the only way to stay in touch with the world of comics when you weren't near a comic book store, even in the 90s. I think they finally gave up the ghost in the late 2000s, the aughts, but I'm not sure, or maybe even later than that. They eventually became a more kind of regular magazine kind of thing. This one says the art is by Tony Armstrong. I'm not even sure what's going on here. Caveman and a wizard, maybe, and some kind of Hydra-like animal.
Looks fun.
And got two more. I'm not boring people too much. So you were bidding on stuff on eBay today?
Well, yesterday I won a bid for X-Men 2099. Got that at a pretty good price. I'm just missing the last issue once that comes in, and potentially some hanger. So I'm kind of looking forward to, because of the 2099 stuff, I feel like that was a bit more interesting, because the idea of mutants in the future, humanity moving one way was cool. It's a completely different cast of characters, so it's kind of this weird standout thing Marvel did that's long forgotten.
Right, long forgotten.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what this is, but it has kind of an Edgar Rice Burroughs feel, and it's by Frank Thorne. Actually, was just showing Frank Thorne pornography a moment ago, or softcore pornography.
Yeah, well, that's not far off either. So there you go.
I think back then, Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff was very popular. There was a lot of, like that other one I showed with the caveman might have been Edgar Rice Burroughs inspired, like his Center of the Earth kind of series. So these, let's see, I haven't been saying the dates, but like this last one was 1975. I probably got this in the mail when I was a kid. Let's see.
All right.
This one is, it doesn't say the year, October 15th. Number 68. So it's probably a year before that, 74. I'm not quite sure what years as a kid I got the Buyer's Guide. And then in the 80s, when I was going to comic book shops, I would pick it up sometimes. Yeah, Surly Tim's saying the magazine when they switched CBG over to the magazine format, it didn't have the same feel as a newspaper. It just didn't have that fun fanish feel as a newspaper when it stopped being a newspaper. See, people were advertising selling protective bags, but I didn't ever notice that as a kid. Like, it still didn't occur to me as a kid to put my comics in bags. Oh, here's a Conan type picture. Someone imitating Barry Windsor Smith, your favorite character.
Yeah,
Tim, you missed. I was showing Frank Thorne's series Gita for a little bit.
All right.
And some other things from 1994, the Warren magazine that was science fiction software porn magazine.
I remember 94 being a good year.
Well, the 1994 came out in like 82 or 84 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Crom says comics. I think Comics of the Mind is a fellow Conan fan. I'm not.
You need more of those.
Okay, that's all those.
Because I've tried. It's just not my bag.
Well, our most popular podcast is the one where we talk about how you don't like Conan and I do.
I guess I'll have to try it again then.
Or we can just keep getting good numbers on our podcast if we argue about Conan even more.
There you go. Maybe I'm just a big Null fan and I don't know it yet.
Null, the
Conan ripoff. Yeah.
Null is a Conan ripoff.
Or wasn't there? There's a bunch of other.
He looks like he looks a lot like Michael Moorcock's Elric.
All right.
At least the way some people have drawn him. And I suppose he's similar to like an evil god that might show up in Conan or something.
Well, I was not like Null, like the whole Donny Cates thing. Like back, I swear there's a different.
I'd like them to have Donny Cates write Conan for a while. That would be cool.
He's too busy writing everything else.
Surly Tim is in my corner too. He says there should be no argument over Conan. You either like him or you're wrong.
I've been wrong before.
Surly Tim is a take no prisoners kind of guy.
You're thinking of Call of Atlantis.
Call. Yes, Call was created by the same guy who created Conan. He just took place, like 10,000 years before Conan in the same shared universe.
Oh, okay.
I got previews, which you never get. I feel maybe they released previews early.
I'm doing previews, man.
Because I feel like I got previews about 3 weeks ago, but I could be wrong. But this is the April preview, so I think they did release it a few
Look at Spider-Man.
Yeah, there might be a few Spider-Man books for you to order.
I'm so
you just wait for does your shop order all the Spider-Man books, or do you have to tell them to get them all?
No, Spider-Man sells, man. Yeah, no, I'm fine on that.
Spider-Man sells, but does
But
Gwen Stacy's stepmother with spider powers sell?
Yes, it's a spider book.
So your shop gets all of those without you needing to request any.
I think I have to request them now. They recently did something where they started pulling back because my shop used to do this thing that they called cross-filing, which was when, like, if you're getting most of the Spider-Man books and then some major Spider-Man event would happen, they just throw it in your file. They stopped doing that.
They keep track of the Spider-Man stuff at least.
Or, it could be Fantastic Four, it could be, whatever. They just know that the way the industry is going, it's hard to keep up with all of it. But they had to stop doing it because so many people are just kind of tossing those books back on the rack, and they were ordering all the stuff that no one was buying and wasn't working out. So I have to be more diligent. So I'm looking at getting Nonstop or whatever the Joe Kelly one is.
I'm not aware of it. What is
it's the one on the cover of whatever you just
showed. This here, Nonstop Spider-Man. I see. Nonstop action, nonstop.
I can't remember that name.
I'm guessing it'll be fast-paced.
Here's hoping. But they're doing a new web of Spider-Man that I'm kind of bummed about.
Spider-Man drawn by Chris Bachalo sounds interesting to me, actually. Why are you bummed about the web of Spider-Man?
Did you ever read the during the Brand New Day era? He did a I
read zero Spider-Man during the Brand New Day.
Oh, why? So good. If there's an era, okay, so there's 2 eras of Spider-Man for you to go to in I forget when you dropped off, but
it's called 1960 and the 1960s and the 1960s. Those are the 2 eras I want to go to in Spider-Man.
Oh, that hurts. Reading the J. Michael Straczynski and JRJR.
Yeah, I do want to go read that era.
And then the Brand New Day era is the other one.
Okay, well, I probably should. I just don't know anything about the Brand New Day era. I must have.
The whole point of the Brand New Day era is that you don't have to know.
I knew that they, rolled back the Mary Jane wedding, and that was pretty much all I knew about Spider-Man for a long time.
Yeah. Getting there was a trick, I guess, but the comics that followed immediately thereafter were pretty great for a long time, and I enjoyed all the way. So that's what preceded the Dan Slott run. Then Dan Slott went for, after that, 8 years, and so and now we're at where we're at, but a lot of good stuff.
I will have to check both those out. Maybe we can even talk about some selected part someday on our podcast. I'm going to just scroll back a little and respond to some comments, even though it's going back to porn and things like that. Let's see.
Hey, JC.
So Surly Tim, I forgot that I can do this with
that's fancy.
Whatchamacallit yard, StreamYard that I'm on. So Surly Tim said, I missed the porn. What the hell, man? And Comics on the Mind, Crom. So we have some Conan talk coming up. And he said, what was interesting to me, sorry to go back to Conan stuff, but he said, I read the new Sumerian, or however you pronounce that, and it was pretty good. So in France, or in Europe in general, there's no copyright left on Conan. So they've been doing their own Conans without paying anybody for the rights. Okay. And they're now publishing them in the US, calling them the Sumerian. I feel like that's a kind of a cheat to go around US laws. Could anyone, could I publish my own Conan comic and just call it, the Hyperborean or whatever age? I don't know. And I haven't got my hands on those yet. We already saw that. And Gore Vidal says that you should listen to the film soundtrack of Conan, and that will convert you. He also says, "Oh no, not Donny Cates." And Gore's from Texas, so he should like Donny Cates, who's from Texas. And Surly Tim said the Sumerian is really good, although the art and story are kind of weird together. So I have not seen these in my shop, so I should have special ordered them. But I think they're just doing original Robert E. Howard stories, like they're doing Red Nails. So I just wanted to acknowledge that conversation about Sumerian. It was pretty good. I'm not sure when Surly Tim says hope to read the text in the back pretty soon if he's talking about the Conan comic. So Comics of the Mind says there's too much Star Wars. And then an old favorite of mine, Joshua Hayes, Bat Josh, recently put up a new video after quite a long hiatus because Batman was driving him crazy. Said, we stopped cross-filing at the LCS I assist at recently. So I'm not sure what cross-filing means. For exactly the reasons you're stating. Instead, we've tried giving personalized recommendation sheets for people to add subscriptions deliberately.
Oh, okay.
So that's a lot more on top of things comic book shop than I have. None of the comic book shops I've been at pay that much close attention to what you're doing with your pull box.
They don't have to care. They're in Portland.
I guess so. Gore Vidal says that that Robert E. Howard was a good writer, and he just reread his Sword Woman, which introduced Agnes. So I've never read the Agnes stories. Marvel is now publishing stuff about Agnes too. Black Agnes, I think her name is, or something like that. Jack Yo mentions none of the live shows have been showing up in my feed. Mine either. It's hard to find the live shows. You have to go to people's channel pages or something to find them sometimes, which is crazy.
Yeah, YouTube's a bust, man.
And Gore Vidal's putting me to work writing my own Conan story. His team of lawyers, Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe, will represent me in court.
All right.
There's Howard text because it's not in copyright in Europe at the back of the Sumerian.
Huh.
And Joshua Hayes says, cross-filing is the idea of throwing a title of a character into the subscription folder of a person who has that character's other titles on their list automatically.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
That, the new Spider-Man books that are coming out, they used to just throw it in my file. They should just throw it in my file. They know. But that's the idea, basically.
Yeah. And you don't mind, or have you at times been annoyed?
I mean, it's been a mixed bag. There's a few times where I've thrown things back on the shelf because sometimes I didn't understand the cross-filing, but more or less I just ran with it because then I get a discount on the book. So sure.
Right. Yeah, I have mixed feelings because sometimes I feel guilty if I'm tossing too many books back at them. But anyway, my shop doesn't do it a whole lot. They've only done it a few times at all. Surly Tim says Black Agnes is amazing, my favorite Marvel book. And I have the first 2 issues of Black Agnes, but have not read them yet. So now I'm psyched to take a look. I think they're being written by Becky Cloonan. I wish they were being drawn by Becky Cloonan. She doesn't draw much anymore. She's decided to become a writer. But I really like her art. So do you have any of the books there with you that you picked up this week?
Let's see. I already put away like Turtles and some of the X books. New Wolverine's out. Haven't read that. New Sexy X-Force. Hey, Amazing Spider-Man.
You like the Wolverine since they rebooted him with Andy Kubert and whoever else?
Yeah, Percy on it.
Percy.
So before that, Percy wrote this long string of podcasts, or yeah, I guess they were delivered as podcasts with Wolverine that really gripped me and got me interested in the character again, which Wolverine's a character I've just never been that invested in. And so once he was on the book, I was sold after that. So I'm enjoying it, which is funny because you reminded me that he wrote some Green Arrow and stuff that I just didn't dig that much. but
Yeah, I
he
do
seems
not
to have
like
found a niche.
That's good. That's good. I mean, he's kind of hung on, so it's good that sometimes these writers get better as they go along. Like James Tinian is a huge example, a writer I used to not like at all, and now I like a lot.
Here's a gem
Maybe I
that
should
I
check out that Wolverine.
got recently.
What's it? Spider-Man, and what does it say under
Unlimited. So this is the first published Joe Hill work.
Oh, so it's a reprint.
No, it's
Joe
the
Hill.
original. I just got it fairly recently.
Okay. I didn't know Joe Hill started with Spider-Man. Wow.
Yeah, it's this super weird. So it's funny because the Spider-Man Unlimited run is like, nothing much, but this issue's worth a pretty penny. So I'm looking forward to digging into this and trying something different.
Hey, it's great when I put up these comments, I can see people's logos nice and big. I love that Comics on the Mind logo. Surly Tim, I'm just going to go back to his because he has kind of a cool logo. That's actually a drawing of him. It's pretty accurate.
All right. Sorry, it looks like I'm going to have to
Jack Yo, that's a really accurate drawing, probably.
I'm going to have to bomb out, but you have a good one, and we'll talk soon.
Oh, you got to go. Okay. Well, I'm on my own then. Bye-bye. Okay. Anyone out there want to join me? Joshua Hayes, Surly Tim, anyone like that? Comics on the Mind? I don't know. I'll just continue on my own, but if anyone feels like it, let me know. It's easiest if you're on Twitter, or you can send me your email, I think. So I'm just going to show the other comics. So my comic book shop was doing its last gasp. So I just thought I'd grab a bunch of extra comics while I was there, both to help them and to help me just have a nice big pile, just in case this really goes on long. So in no particular order. Oh, Josh, you're working from home at night. Does that mean you're sleeping late now that you're working from home and working late? So let's see. I got Amethyst #2. I really didn't like Amethyst #1, but I haven't had a chance to get my daughter to read it. So gonna see, and it's on my pull list. I was real excited at first that it was going to be drawn by Amy Reeder, but then when I actually saw the art, I was less excited by it. I thought I would like the Amy Reeder art more. Let's see. And I grabbed Tomorrow. I got issue 1 a while ago, just while browsing around comic shops, and I haven't read it yet. So I thought I'd just grab issue 2, assuming I'll want to read it. It's a Peter Milligan comic from Burger Books, and most Burger Books comics, Dark Horse Burger Books comics, have been good. So I need to give that a try. It says on it that it's 2 of 5, so it's a 5-issue run. Yeah, Josh said he's working at home until 2. His schedule is wrecked. Maybe Josh works for a bank, and they may be working overtime, I'm guessing, to keep up with all the people who need to refinance or change things. Must be a crazy time for banks. Some other time, Comics on the Mind. I'm still trying to get back into the groove of doing live shows, and I knew Matt was the person I can grab easiest because he and I are chatting all the time. But I will try to have upcoming some more live shows that are just kind of open invitation for the first 4 or 5 people who are available. Josh says exactly. So I was right about craziness in the banking world. Gore says, I've been watching some of the more reactionary channels with thousands of subscribers who dedicate much of their content to being angry. Gail Simone and Dan Slott seem to provoke them. Yeah, I've become pretty good at avoiding those channels, but I did notice a whole bunch of them dogpiling on Gail Simone and comments. Like she has her own comic book channel now, and she put out some videos which, were pretty basic. But all the comments on it, hundreds of comments on it of people just attacking her. They've picked her out as one of the people they want to attack no matter what she does. It's kind of sad. Josh says he's a commercial credit analyst. So that's been intense. Yeah, I can imagine the credit for the businesses, especially the smaller ones, but I guess even the big ones, just everybody probably wants to refinance or restructure their credit. You love Dan Slott's Superior Spider-Man, and I read that and I liked it a lot, and I love Dan Slott's Silver Surfer. I need to go back and read more of his Spider-Man. I did not read a lot of his Spider-Man. Yeah, they are trolls. They love having someone to pick on, and those, whatever they are, Comicsgate channels or whatever they are, have pointed the way of how and who to pick on, and there's just a lot of people who enjoy that. I also got the Immortal Hulk, which is this supposed 750th issue. I can't imagine there's really been 750 issues of the Hulk since 1965. That doesn't add up to me, so I'm not sure what that means. I'm going to look into that actually, but it's actually issue 33. But since it was quote 750, they made a $6 issue, which is extra thick. If it were anything but the Hulk, I'd probably be pretty upset, but I don't mind too much. So they got some guest artists to do part of the comic. That looks kind of fun. But they still have a lot of Joe Bennett art, and I think the Immortal Hulk really needs Joe Bennett. Somehow it goes off the tracks when it doesn't have Joe Bennett doing the art, as much as I love the script. So I'm looking forward to reading that. I'm pretty sure the Immortal Hulk has been coming out twice a month for quite a while now, which is great as long as they can keep up the intensity. And it has kind of slumped a bit since number 25, but I still like it. Let's see. Gore says, I've watched the channels to check my blood pressure. Yeah, I get pretty upset watching those channels, which is why I just stopped watching them. Sometimes it's kind of fun, to just see how crazy they can get. And occasionally they make points I agree with. I just don't think their points add up to their conclusion. Yeah, the Silver Surfer, I double dipped on the Slott Silver Surfer and got the omnibus. That might be a good way to read it if you don't mind getting things in big chunky hardbacks, because it's a little bigger, and the Michael Allred art is really beautiful. That's my favorite Michael Allred art has been on the Silver Surfer. Yes, it gets the Comicsgaters a lot of followers. Sometimes I hear people saying it's all old men who are these Comicsgaters, but I think they're actually kind of younger men who are just enjoy being trolly, but I'm not sure. Let's see. Comics on the Mind is responding to Surly Tim, but I'm not sure what Surly Tim said that he's responding to. Surly Tim says it. Anyway, sorry, I lost track of the conversation there. Surly Tim says, it's all kind of crazy when it comes to negativity from both sides these days. It would be nice if we could all get back to just loving comics. Well, true, in our society in general, I feel like there's a lot of negativity from both sides that is just the wrong conversation to be having. On YouTube, I see an occasional snipe back at the Comicsgaters, but I don't see the two-way argument. And Gore Vidal says that he rereads. I've lost track of where that comment came from. I also got Justice League Dark. That's kind of the first Justice League Dark cover that was less impressive. Justice League Dark has had great art up till now. Who's the artist now? It doesn't look the same, although the interior art looks good. And of course, I can't find the credits. I am so creator driven. I always want to find the credit. Well, of course, the credits are on the cover. Martine Bueno is the artist, and Fernandez. So anyway, I'm psyched about that. Justice League Dark has been consistently good. I got Once in Future, which the story basically ended, so I'm curious how it will continue. I've loved the artwork in here by Dan Mora, and it's got very good coloring by one of my favorite colorists, Tamara Bonvillain, who I think is another person who gets attacked by the Comicsgaters, but I'm only faintly aware of that since for about a year now I haven't really tracked what the Comicsgaters are doing. So anyway, I'm very curious to see where Once and Future will go now. Surly Tim says that YouTube isn't as toxic, as other platforms. Gore Vidal, I reread Mike Allred's Red Rocket 7 recently. Have I read it? I read some of the issues back when it came out, back when I was a more sloppy comic book collector and didn't worry about getting all the issues. And then I bought a hardback, and it was listed as a deluxe edition, and it was tiny. So I was so bitter I haven't read it yet, but I will go and read the whole thing. But I think I want to collect the original issues, which were the size of LPs, vinyl albums. It's a history of rock and roll and pop music up to the 90s. It's wonderful, right? With, I think, an alien who becomes a David Bowie-like pop star or something along that. And Surly Tim says he's digging the Bueno art, which he means in Justice League Dark. So yeah, that Bueno art. But Bueno has been one of the artists on it, so that'll be good. It's a different artist than last week or last month. But yeah, he's a good artist, so that'll be good. Sylvia's still with us or has come back. I could only get the variants on Justice League Dark and Once and Future. Disappointed. I'm a cover A kind of reader. I'm exactly the same way, and it's silly because I think of myself as more of a reader than an anal collector, but I actually do get all upset when I can't get the cover A, and I get stuck with those covers, like the DC covers that don't have any logos on them. Like I really like a comic book to have a logo on it, if that's the right term for that. Trade dress. And yeah, last week the copy of Jimmy Olsen that I got was one of those logoless issues, and I just didn't notice that's what they had stuck in my pull box until half a week later. But it really bugged me for several days. Every time I look at that comic, I was bugged. Yeah, I agree. Comics on the Mind. That's the smaller channels were just about the comics. I know I started my channel just inspired by other people's channels, and I just wanted to reach out and be part of that conversation. I didn't think about being a popular channel or getting lots of subscribers other than hearing from my fellow YouTubers, people like you or Gore Vidal and Joshua Hayes, who make videos. I just wanted to converse with them. It's great. Now I have other people who comment on my videos who don't make videos, some of whom are kind of regulars, and that's also great. I love their presence in my life. Joshua Hayes says, so I've been away a while. So a book I read recently was just blown away by Planetary. I had to reread it twice to really absorb it. Planetary is definitely on my list of books to reread. And I think I now have 2 hardback collections of it. So I definitely should reread it at least twice. But that is an amazing book. It's so rich and layered and textured. It goes well beyond comics and reaches out into all kinds of pop culture and even literary culture and movies, of course, and stuff. Gore Vidal says he listened to Station, the David Bowie album, while reading some of the issues of Red Rocket. That makes a lot of sense. Me Too, I think, is referring to why you're doing your channel. And Joshua Hayes says, I'd not really read much Warren Ellis. That might change. Can anyone speak to him or recommend more of his work? Well, it's extremely different from Planetary, and it took me a while to get into it, but his, what's it called? Transmetropolitan is well worth reading. And he's got other work, but it is inconsistent. Like Trees was really good, and then it kind of fell away and is incomplete. I'm trying to think of, I'll maybe other people will suggest other Warren Ellis books. I know there's other good Warren Ellis books. Comic Crack brings up an even worse kind of cover. The variants without the character that's even in the book are the ones I really don't like getting stuck with, he says. Happened with Silver Surfer Black issue. Yeah, and it just feels like you have all those really nice covers, and then suddenly in the middle of your run, you have some cover that's meaningless to you, and it's just aesthetically less pleasing. Oh, one of the earliest videos you saw by me was on Planetary. Yeah. So that's probably when I first purchased a hardcover version, and I probably was talking about it in a haul video or something. And when I got that, I started reading it. I read about halfway through, but I had already read the whole series, and then I put it aside because I keep buying too many comics. But I definitely want to go back to that. I had a fantasy of, making a series of videos or podcasts on every issue of Planetary. But I know that that's a lot for most people to get through. Surly Tim, also not a big fan of the variants. He says he's very visual, and he memorizes his covers so he can recognize them in the boxes at shows and cons. Well, that makes a lot of sense too. That consistency allows you to remember what you have and what you're missing. And that way I don't buy doubles. With variants, I buy doubles. I have several times accidentally bought the same issue twice when I've been shopping too quickly and saying, oh, look, there's another issue of Jimmy Olsen or something like that. Jack Yo, who knows his stuff, says Warren Ellis really was in a groove during his runs on Stormwatch, Planetary, and Authority. Yes, Stormwatch and Authority, especially the Authority. I don't think I read all of his earlier Stormwatch, but on Authority, he was really hot. And that's now available in 2 beautiful Absolute editions, and there's lots of other editions of Authority. Excuse me. And Surly Tim says Transmet is amazing. Surly Tim's kind of a Transmet kind of guy, I think. Because Transmet is about, in the future, this sort of grumpy, surly journalist who's kind of both he's kind of a cross between Alan Moore and Uncle Duke. What's the real Uncle Duke's name? Uncle Duke from Doonesbury. I'm just blanking on his name for the moment. Gore Vidal says, I think I came to your channel via Tim Morant. Oh, I really missed Tim Morant's channel too. And we both motivated you to start your own channel. Tim was great. And he briefly came back and made like one video and then went away again. But yeah, I always loved his videos, and he had very interesting taste in collecting. Hunter S. Thompson, right. Transmet is basically Hunter S. Thompson as a sci-fi character. It has a really incredible amount of creativity in the creation of its sci-fi world. It's almost a kitchen sink of sci-fi ideas in a way, but it's a lot of fun. I have to confess, I have not read all of Transmet yet, probably about 2/3 of that. Speaking of sci-fi, I also picked up Legion of Heroes number 5. Legion of Heroes is the only book that I have not been enjoying that I leave on my pull list. Some kind of psychological quirk. I think because I just want a Legion book, especially with art this good. If only the Legion stories were to match. And it's possible that somehow Bendis will pull it all together in the end, but it feels very meandering and loose and sloppy to me, writing-wise. But I just keep getting it. And if you watch my comic book countdowns, I do every month when it comes out, it's at the bottom. It's rated the lowest of all the comics that I rate. But I guess I'm enjoying it in some sick way. John with Comics put you on to me. That's cool. I like John with Comics a lot. And I learned about him through Bueller. So I learned about a lot of newer people through Comics with Bueller, because I was stuck in my own little niche that had been formed years ago. And then I saw Comics with Bueller. I can't remember originally how. And he was good about talking about other people's channels, like John with Comics and a number of other channels. And then those channels led me to other people. I'm not sure, Comics on the Mind, how I first stumbled across you. But I did, so through someone. Legion is so hard to digest, right? So maybe if we go back and get to read all 12, I think Bendis is only planning 12 issues of it. Maybe it will make more sense later on. And I do like a lot of the sci-fi touches that Bendis has thrown in. I just don't like, I just don't like the plot and I don't like the dialogue, or I don't know what the plot is and I don't like the dialogue, to be more honest on that. Got Edgar Allan Poe's Snifter of Terror, Volume 2, Number 6. So I assume this is going to be the last issue in this volume because they usually do 6-issue runs from Ahoy Comics, a publisher that I really enjoy. I guess this is Edgar Allan Poe as Donald Trump. I do like their kind of goofy covers, but I'm kind of tired of jokes on Trump, to tell you the truth. And I don't know if usually they stick Edgar Allan Poe in a familiar scene, like Attack of the 50-Foot Woman or something, the movie poster, and then they stick Edgar Allan Poe in his underwear in it instead of the 50-Foot Woman. So I don't know if this one, though, is a reference to some other picture or not. Yeah, I might have found you in the chats. Yeah, because when I watch a live stream and if I'm at my computer, I will check out, you can go to the side of people's comments and click on those 3 dots and go to their channel. So I'll do that and check out their channel and see if they have comic book stuff. So maybe, I don't know, did I forget which chats I've seen you on most. Was it, I'm not sure, but I saw you on a couple of chats and maybe I saw your comments there beforehand. Surly Tim's Fun Bunker says, I caught you on Silver Age Dave's show one day and started watching it, and then you commented about me tossing a book behind me and was honored that you watched. I am a big fan of your videos, Surly Tim. So I'm subbing so many people that sometimes I miss. Sometimes I'll realize, oh, Surly Tim's put out a whole bunch of videos lately, and I've only saw one of them. And I try to eventually circle back and watch as many as I can. Joshua Hayes says, Bendis is 3 people. There's the ultimate Spidey Daredevil. I am the writer, Bendis. Then there's the Civil War II Superman. I'm the Bendis, cutesy Bendis. Yeah, that's the one I don't like. Such a love-hate with his stuff for me. Yeah, and I worry that he's drunk his own Kool-Aid and he's not able to be critical of his own work at the level that a writer needs to be. I think a writer has to believe in their own work, and so they can't be too critical, but they need some level of self-censorship or something. Whoops. Gore says, have you considered going on strike on the Portland crew until Bob reconsiders his ill-advised opinion of Elektra? Norma Ray going on strike. Oh. Yes, that's kind of a running joke. Now, I was totally shocked that Bob did not like Elektra. Bullseye Bob from Everything Comics is the world's biggest Daredevil fan, as far as I can tell. But he is not a big reader of Elektra or a big lover, or he was pulling our leg. Anyhow. And Josh says he meant 2 Bendises. There might be a third. I don't know. So, yeah, as I run behind on what the chat's saying, I'm not sure what. I think Comics on the Mind is talking about checking out people in the chat by going to those 3 dots and checking out their channel. Sylvia says, I like the prose at the back of the Ahoy books. I didn't think they'll be included in trades. Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't checked out their trades. Or maybe just some of the prose. So that is surprising because usually I'm bummed out by prose in comics. But when I find the time to read their prose, they're kind of what you would call shorts, very short stories. And most of them are very good. Some of them extremely good. This issue looks like it only has one, that it has a lot of goofy comics about the Black Cat and Edgar Allan Poe. That's another thing that I love about Ahoy, that they brought Hunt Emerson, this British cartoonist, back into my life. Because back in the early 80s, when there were still head shops, I would find comics by Hunt Emerson in head shops. And then I still remembered his art, which is a little different than it is in here. But I couldn't remember his name. So once the internet started up, I couldn't look him up and find out what else he'd done. So now I'm reminded it was Hunt Emerson. I should look up what else Hunt Emerson has done since the late 70s. Oh, there's a poem, or no, there's a recipe. So yeah, they do a lot of creative things in the Hoy comics, and most of the stories and art are very good too. And they use really nice paper. Let's see. Comics on the Mind says, love Silver Age Dave. I do too. He's another one who, for a while, was making a lot of videos, and I had trouble keeping up with all of them. And now I'm making one of these long live videos, and you can't go back and watch everyone's live video. Unfortunately, it's just too many of them. Bendis's soup stuff, according to Surly Tim, seems more like a long con to me. I know when it's all over, I'm going to want to run the books through a blender. You should do that. Keep up the Surly Timness of the Surly Tim channel. I gave up completely on his Superman stuff. It was so frustrating, and it ruined the sucking Supergirl into the Superman continuity of Bendis's ruined Supergirl for me and my daughter. There was just, whoever was writing it was just writing it to please Bendis, I think. Yeah, Comics on Mind says hard to watch everything, so he understands. Yeah, the proliferation, I mean, it's ironic I'm saying this on a live show, but the proliferation of live shows has just really made it hard to keep up with everyone. And although a lot of the people who started on YouTube when I did have long since gone, there's still enough of them around so that those are the channels that I'm feel most loyal to for the most part. And so I always try to find their videos, even though a lot of the older, by older, I don't mean by age, but just by how long they've been on YouTube, people don't usually make videos as often. So it's also easier to miss them. Like Mr. Gore Vidal, who has come back recently and made a few videos, or maybe just one. I need to check his channel and see if I missed anything in my feed. Surly Tim, I had to clean out my subscriptions. Too much stuff that no longer exists. Now I've cleaned it up so I can catch up with more comic-oriented materials. Yeah, and sometimes I'll be watching someone and they switch and they become a movie channel or a card collecting channel or something else. And I feel a little bit of loyalty to them, but I mostly go on YouTube to talk about comics. Gore Vidal, Howler Mouse and Jared Osborne were recently on a live stream. Yeah, I missed that. I need to go back and find that. It would be great if you and ETA Nick could join them in a live stream. The quartet has a lot of comic history to share. That would be an interesting combination of people. I'm not even sure, like, if ETA Nick watches Howler Mouse and Jared Osborne or me anymore, but he might. I mean, he's pretty much focused on investment now. I do watch a good percentage of his videos, but he puts out a lot too. I'd love to chat with him though. He's a great guy. And Surly Tim watched a little bit of that. I watched that. You know, Surly Tim, have you ever been on a Howler Mouse video? I don't know. You and Howler Mouse would probably be an interesting combo. Yes. So Gore Vidal saying all of us that he mentioned before have historical context to comics, which he enjoys. Yeah, us older guys enjoy our historical context, and Howler Mouse and Jared and ETA Nick, all in their own very different ways, provide a lot of interesting context. I love that Jared has a lot of sort of professional knowledge from the physical aspects of putting comics together that he can talk to and reach to. Tomasi was king on Superman. He was so hot on Superman. It was horrible to have Bendis take his place, especially in retrospect, seeing what Bendis did. And sadly, he feels a bit, well, I haven't read all of his detective comics. I kind of put them aside, and but it feels like he's a bit of a spent force. Maybe he's going to get his energy back up on detective, but at first he seemed not the Tomasi that I loved so much on detective. Yes, they've absolutely ruined Supergirl. It was horrible. Yeah, it became terrible. Howler Mouse was one of the first channels that Surly Tim watched. And when he had his original channel years ago. So I must have missed Tim, your earliest channel. He is one of the YouTube greats. Yes, he is. He definitely was one of the people who inspired me to start making videos. It's funny though, I used to think he was my age, but I'm probably about 12 or more years older than him, but he's such an old soul in some way. And the comics, he would talk a lot about the comics I read as a kid. Well, I always try to give my perspective, no matter how odd it is. Thanks, Surly Tim. I got Exo Man of War #1, and I didn't really intend to get this, but I had Exo on my pull list from the previous series, and I thought since it was in my pull list, I just would accept it and give it a try. I don't know much about the writer Dennis Hopeless Hallam, which is, I guess he used to just be Dennis Hopeless, and that was he should have just kept that. I guess that was a pen name. Surly Tim's earlier stuff really blows. Well, I guess you had to do it to do the great videos you do now. And Surly Tim has a great talking voice when he does just his podcast style things too. So we'll see. I do like Man of War. With Valiant, I seem to just read one of their comics at a time, and I slip in and out of them. I always enjoy them, but I somehow don't feel the need to get all the Valiant comics. And then, this is pissing me off, I got Hidden Society #2. I did put this on my pull list, but I wanted #1 to start with #1. So, and now I can't go cruising around to all the other comic book shops and see if someone has Hidden Society #1. Maybe I can order it online. It has Raphael Albuquerque art, which I think is the reason I put it on my pull list. And lately, a lot of these miniseries from Dark Horse have started getting really good. For a while, Dark Horse was really slipping for me, but I've had a lot of luck with a lot of Dark Horse comics lately. So, and this looks good. So I definitely need to find #1. Yes, Howler started collecting and reading comics when he was really young because his like hippie stepdad had them all over the house or something, if I remember correctly. And he just has that old guy vibe. I mean, if you look at him, you realize he's not as old as me, but if you just listen to him, it seems that way in a way. Or maybe it's his storyteller approach to things. Now here, I just grabbed this sort of automatically. It says the Spirit 80th anniversary celebration. I probably have all of the stories in here, I would assume, in multiple or at least a variety of editions. Some of this looks kind of recolored, maybe. I wasn't even sure what it is, but it looks like at a glance it's just reprints of some of the best Spirit stories. But as I give in to my obsessions more and more, I just let myself buy and rebuy different versions of Spirit stories. There's some great albums of Spirit stories that Kitchen Sink put out that are kind of colored in a watercolor fashion back before digital coloring. So that's really cool. And these recolorings look interesting to me, so I'm gonna have to take a closer look at them. There's some black and white ones in here too. The Spirit is beautiful in black and white. So I think I actually prefer it that way. The color almost gets in the way of all the beautiful black ink work. But it's nice to have color editions too. I wish this was bigger. If they're going to reprint Spirit that's been reprinted so much before, give it a special size thing. This thing is a little smaller than a comic book. I'm also wondering what Clover Press is and how are they the new representative of the Will Eisner legacy? It says all new coloring by Laura Martin, who's kind of a colorist who was really great back in the day of like Planetary, but I'm not sure I love her coloring as much in the modern day. But she's still, she's a veteran colorist. that looks nice. The end papers. Let's see. Sully Tim says, I'm attempting to work on my porn voiceover skills. Well, porn definitely needs some voiceover. I'm thinking there's a market for it. Although porn has so little plot anymore, it's sad. Crone from Dark Horse is pretty good. I read all 5 issues of Crone. I did not love the artwork in that. I thought it was a pretty good comic, but I was hoping, I think whenever I read Sword and Sorcery, especially Conan, but other stuff too, I want something magical in the artwork. I don't know, just maybe because I started with Barry Windsor Smith, and there have been a lot of good artists who've approached Sword and Sorcery in interesting ways, like P. Craig Russell, and I'm forgetting the name of it. There's another artist who did some great Elric work and stuff. Comic Crack, you saw The Spirit today, didn't flip through it. So yeah, it seems to be all reprints. It says there's introductions in here by a bunch of well-known people. So it depends on how deeply you're into The Spirit, but this might be a really good starter point for someone who's curious about Will Eisner's Spirit and wants to see some of the best Will Eisner work, especially if you'd like to get it in color and you like a slightly more modern coloring style. Well, hopefully, Tim, you can snag that book after the apocalypse is over. Josh Hayes says, Diamond cease shipments. Yes, I think most of us have heard that. Don't want to go doom and gloom, but that makes me nervous for a lot of LCSs. Yeah, I worry, like my own shop is worried about paying their debts and paying their rent. Matt and I talked about that actually at the beginning of this hangout. Hopefully the stimuli can keep them afloat. Man, just digital reading would suck. I agree. I appreciate digital reading as a supplementary way to get some comics, but the more I read digitally, the more I love the physical experience. Clover Press has a bunch of books, reprints mostly, so maybe they're experts in doing reprint books and maybe reaching other markets than just, this feels like something that maybe wasn't solely aimed at the comic book shop market, more of a bookstore kind of thing. And Comics on the Mind said that makes sense since it may look like an old woman read Sonya. Yeah, like what if somehow they brought back Frank Thorne there's another great artist who, he did Red Sonja and he had such a unique style. If they had someone like him on that Crone. Yeah, you hopped on it because, I was excited about Crone, which is, for those who don't know, it's about someone who's like an old Red Sonja who's called back into battle because the evil overlord has reappeared. And it's pretty well done, especially I liked the last 2 issues of it a lot once the plot developed. It could have gone on a little bit longer, I thought. Hang in there, LCSs, says Joshua Hayes. I know a lot of subs are calling to ask them to ship them merchandise to help them along. I recommend everyone try to order something from an LCS during all this. And I'm going to try and order some stuff from my LCS too. Now, and maybe Josh, you know more about this than I do. My guy at the LCS thought that the stimulus package or what have you was going to be giving money to large corporations, but only helping with loans to small businesses like LCSs. And he said, well, I have enough debt already. I don't want more loans. And he may have gotten that wrong. I don't know. But it does seem like generally the government ends up does not help small businesses nearly as much as I would like. And I would assume most people would like. More people are employed by small businesses than big corporations. Shirley Tim says, Pre-Craig Russell is a really cool guy. He usually sets up at a local con for me. Or I assume near you, or does he work for you? But I would love to meet him and maybe, buy some original prints or some original sketches or something. He is an amazing artist. Gore Vidal says, we have 3 comic book shops. The family and partnership owned survive on pull lists. The single owner book supplements through toys, pops, and back issues. Some may not survive this. And, you know, a lot of small businesses are in trouble, not just LCSs, but those of us who follow the comic book world closely have a sense of it being very precarious. So there could be quite the domino effect if people start going out of business. Hopefully not, though. And we did survive the collapse of the 90s. Yeah, big twist in Crone. I went to Comic Book Crack says, I went to 2 of the local shops that I frequent and picked up something from each. I think we're on the verge of a lockdown here, so that might have been my last chance. Yeah. And here and in, I think, most places where people live in the US, the lockdown's already happened. So you can go to grocery stores and a few other places. I was relieved to find out the pet shop's going to stay open so we can keep getting our hay for our not hamsters, our guinea pigs, my daughter's guinea pigs. Thought now would be a good time to get a dog, but it's probably not a time where anyone, because my whole family's at home, we could, you know, really break in a dog, but I don't know if you're allowed to go out and look at dogs at dog places. That's a total aside. Josh says, so far, that's the only thing on the docket. So I assume you mean the loans to help small businesses. But there's some situations where the government would pay off the debt that we're looking into. It's also nebulous, right? And they're rushing it out and they're arguing and between the Republicans and Democrats and probably people from different states wanting different things and stuff. And who knows what's really going on. And I've kind of stopped avoiding the news because I'm getting depressed by the coronavirus. And so one way to deal with it is not watch the news so much. At first, I was like reading everything about it, and I kind of stopped. Yeah, so Surly Tim, you say you told your dealer to ship you your stuff when it's convenient for him. It's hard to say when he will reopen. So this week was the last week he'll get any new stuff, if he got it, if he was still open. And afterwards, there's nothing new to ship out. So I'm going to kind of look at trades that I want and contact my comic book shop and let them know some of the trades I want, and they'll pack them up for me. And I think I can just pick them up in front of the store. He said, contact me and I'll come into the store and I can rap on the door. Yeah, near you, not for you. That's what I thought you meant. At the local con for you. That's really cool. So maybe he lives in your region. C.L. Moore's Jewel of Jory, inspired by Howard in part, is superior to Howard's Agnes stories, as good as they are. I've always meant to read Jewel of Jory. I don't think I have, but I read a lot of C.L. Moore short stories. I might have read some Jewel of Jory short stories, actually. Was she on another planet? I'm not sure. C.L. Moore was a woman writer of science fiction back in the 40s and maybe the 50s and 60s too. But yeah, where Comics of Mind down in California is locked down. Yeah, and you feel the same way. The news has become, because you just don't want to spend all day thinking about the coronavirus. I mean, it's important stuff, but you gotta, and you're trapped in your house. So you know why you're trapped in your house, because of the Republicans and the Democrats are acting like spoiled children. Makes me want to read Barbie comics. Yeah, I hate thinking about politics too much. Don't totally lock out the news, though. Well, I do check out headlines, and my wife reads a lot of news. Important conversations about what's happening that will impact everything after the pandemic has subsided, hopefully. Yeah, it's just that you can, with the internet, like I usually read news on my iPad, and you can just keep rechecking it all day long. New details trickling down about the epidemic. And, for a while I was reading all these articles about what different countries would do and what's the most successful way. And of course, I'm powerless to really affect what my government does about it. And it feels like the reports on the news kept giving me different ideas of like what the best way to handle it was. Like in Japan, they have not locked down, but somehow they've done something that has reduced the spread of the coronavirus. And in Korea, they've really, rocked out on the testing, and that's really helped. And, but I can't do anything about it. I can shout at the internet that I want more testing or more hand sanitizer, but it doesn't do anything. I have a few weeks worth of books saved in my file so I can order them. Yeah, you should do that and give some money if you can afford to, if your own finances are not being cut off. I mean, I'm lucky that my wife's the main breadwinner right now, and her money is flowing nicely. And the money that I also draw on monthly during my temporary retirement is not too badly hurt by the crash of the stock market. So we're okay. So I keep ordering and spending money in general, as I always have, but a lot of other people can't. Here I am talking about the coronavirus a lot. I plan on asking him for a fewer larger volumes so I can boost the numbers for him. That's really nice. Oh, you're disabled. I didn't realize that, Tim. So are you kind of housebound anyway? So that's, when you're disabled in one way or another, and I don't know what way you are, and you don't have to say, but that's another great thing about the internet now. You can reach out to more people in a way that you couldn't when you were, not getting out of the house that much anyway. Fear mongering is a real deal. I watched the short videos that This Is Comics of Mine that CNN put out and some of the big news outlets, but I don't obsess over watching every little bit. Yeah, and I'm training myself not to do that. But Shirley Tim is obsessed. And you need all that news to get surly, right, Tim? Is anyone digging into a series from their archives that they've always wanted to dig into? I'm almost done Scout by Truman. So I want to dig deeper into my House of Mystery and House of Secrets. And there's other stuff I want to dig into too. Maybe in another video. I can't think of what it all is. I wish I had a bunch of Scout comics. I think I have about 2 or 3 of them. Gore Vidal never... it's mostly us older guys. Scout was a big comic in the 80s. I'm trying to think what it would be equivalent to now. Kind of a cult favorite for people going to comic book shops, I'm thinking. Josh Hayes says, I get it. Mentally, you can really wear out. It's sad. I'm looking forward to campaign commercials. Right? That's like a less heavy duty, although they're going to be talking about coronavirus too, I suppose. I mean, Biden's already jumping on that. Well, and Josh, I guess, given your work, you're being reminded of the coronavirus all day long as you help people out with their loans. You're rereading it. Concrack's rereading a Scout. He realized he never finished Scout War Shaman, which I'm looking forward to. So was there a separate comic called Shaman, or was Scout the Shaman? I can't remember. Tales to Astonish. Ooh, that's a nice thing to go back to. And you like so Tales to Astonish, was that the Hulk and Submariner? And you like the Hulk stories better. Yeah. I always like Submariner in theory, and I've been collecting a run of his Bronze Age run. I've almost finished it, but I haven't read many of them yet. I love the covers and I like flipping through them. Maybe that's one to try to reread, but Submariner somehow seems better in theory than in reality in most of what I've read. So Tim says, yeah, I'm in home all the time, so this is old hat for me. I'm very open about it. Stigmas don't bother me at all. Had I been afraid of stigma, I would have avoided comic books like the plague. Another thing that us older guys have in common when comics had a big stigma. You're gonna dig in. Terrence Comic Crack's gonna dig into a bunch of his horror DC comics as well. Yeah, because I'm really in the mood for. I love those short stories that they did back then. There was a real art to it, and as you dig through those comics, you find, oh, wait, there's a Gil Kane story, or there's, some other amazing person story that you didn't know did stuff in those comics. War Shaman was the second series. It featured Scout's kids. Okay, I didn't know that. You love the smell of the old comics. I do too, except for the ones, some of them every once in a while have gone bad. I can't quite explain it. I'd have to have 2 comics to share with someone, but some old comics smell really good. And every once in a while I'll open up a bag and it spoiled too far. And Comic Crack likes the smell of old comics. Silver Age Submariner, but I don't like him after reading Hickman's Avengers, that betraying son of a gun. Yeah. I guess there's a tradition of using the Submariner as a half good guy, half bad guy. Anyway, so I guess I did not get very far in Hickman's Avengers run. It was too tough going for me. Maybe if I went back and read an omnibus. Surly Tim's prepping for 2 podcasts that he's going to be on. Oh, so a guest star on other people's podcasts. I hope you'll link us to them when they come out. And he may crack the spine of his Howard the Duck omnibus after. I didn't realize there was a Howard the Duck omnibus out there. I wonder if it's still in print. Fables, that would be something. That would really be something to dig into if you have a lot of reading time. It's over 100 issues long. I've only read part of it. I've actually been picking up the omnibuses of Jack of Fables, one of the side comics from, because I keep finding them for like 60 or 70% off. So I should check and see if I have all of those and maybe just read the Jack of Fables now. And Gore Vidal mentions Bill Willingham's The Elementals, which he has read, but you didn't get any response. Oh, did you mention that early in the comments and I missed it? I'm sorry. I would love to reread those too. I've found a few issues of them. I don't think I ever read them all back in the day, some of them. That was probably even before Scout when the Elementals first came out in the 80s, or if I'm remembering correctly, a really early kind of indie comic. Was it kind of a bit of a response to the X-Men's popularity at the time? I'm not sure. Yeah, that's one I'd like to dig out. That's a fun one to hunt up from cheap boxes where you can find it. And Josh, like me, has a lot of unread trades. His main temptations to read right now are the Ostrander Suicide Squad, Mignola Hellboy, and BPRD stuff with it. There's a huge quantity of that stuff. And Remender's Uncanny X-Force. That is some good stuff, Uncanny X-Force. I have not read much of Ostrander's Suicide Squad, and I hear that's, kind of a must read. I kind of missed out on that in the 80s. That was the 80s, right? Josh says, Fables is excellent start to finish. The character arcs are outstanding. And he's looking into trying to collect pre-Alan Moore Swamp Thing. And of course, those first, 10 issues by Bernie Wrightson are the pricey ones, but they're beautiful. I think I have 1 or 2 of them. And then I just broke down and got the omnibus, the Swamp Thing omnibus they came out with recently. Ultraman manga books. Was Ultraman the one that had a TV show when I was a little kid? I'm not sure. Judge Dredd. Judge Dredd's very interesting. I've read some Judge Dredd and I've liked it, but somehow never got fully sucked into it. People are admiring Josh's choices. I assuming the Swamp Thing, but it could be other stuff. I know Comic Crack likes things like old Swamp Thing. Trades of Saga, that's a good thing to dive into if you haven't already read it. And that will be the kind of thing I think that you can read like potato chips and just keep going and going. You mentioned Elementals on a different channel. I'm sorry, I've lost track of it. But anyway, a lot of people probably do not know what the Elementals were, because even people reading comics in the 80s could easily have missed the Elementals. And I think there's legal problems with the Elementals and they can't be reprinted. There's the comic book company Kamiko ended in some huge legal problem that has never been fully unwound, is my understanding. Surly Tim will be on the Superman podcast with the Comic Collector and Retro Review this Friday and Saturday. So let's all go check our podcast feeds for that. Terrence, you need to read more Judge Dredd. I got some digitally, and that might have been part of my problem. I mean, I have picked up the occasional, and then I read some American Judge Dredd. I mean, published by IDW and done by their own artists and writers, and I didn't get into that too much. Warrior Magazine in 2000 AD. I love Warrior Magazine. I'm still trying to collect all the issues of that. I think I have the first 10 or so. Case Files of Judge Dredd. That's what I got digitally and are like Cerebus phone books, right? But getting them digitally might have been a mistake. Elementals were really cool. Surly Tim knows his stuff. The Eagle Comics Judge Dredd story set. So I get confused about Eagle Comics. Oh, I know. Eagle Comics were in the 80s. They were reprints of a lot of 2000 AD comics from and colorized, I think. So they took the 2000 AD comics from England and reprinted them as Eagle Comics in the US, I believe. And Terrence sent me a bunch of really cool ones. What was the name of that? This weird wizard guy. Damn it, can't remember the name. But those were really cool comics. See you later, Josh. Get back to work. Josh was not into Judge Dredd, but really big. Had a friend who was a really big guy on that. If you get the Corona, unless you get the Corona, you'll be on it. I assume you mean Judge Dredd. Here. Terrence says, Eagle Comics and Quality Comics reprints are the issues I have. Nemesis. You gave me some incredible Nemesis comics, Terrence. I loved those. They were printed too small in the American-sized comics. So it would be cool to find the originals, too. Although in America, we got them in color. Art and color is amazing. Yeah, I was showing some black and white art that I really love there, but a lot of things are better in color. And I think the color helps your brain read the comic when it's done right. Gore is the only person who doesn't like Saga. And the litigation on the Elementals and argument over who owns them, which is really sad that we can't get reprints of that. Rogue Trooper. I love Rogue Trooper. First Eagle books you read were the Rogue Trooper. I came to Rogue Trooper much later. They were doing when was it? 5 or 6 years ago, IDW was doing Rogue Trooper classics, colorized versions of those early Rogue Troopers, which had a lot of Gibbons from Watchmen, a lot of his art. Suddenly, boy, when I'm on camera, remembering names of things becomes hard. Yeah, Nemesis, Terrence, Nemesis is a great series. I never did a video about it. I wonder if they've put out, at least in England, trades of it. And there's a board game about Rogue Trooper. Wow, that's cool. So another person who doesn't like Saga, we've got, you can form a club. Gore Vidal and Surly Tim. He threw the first issue across the room after reading it. It was a reprint, so it only cost you $1. I loved Saga. After a while, I still liked it, but after 50 issues or whatever, I didn't love it as much as I did when it first started. But the first 20 issues or so really knocked me out. But anyway, everyone's different. Tim Morant liked Rogue Trooper too. Cool. Another comic I got was the Dollhouse Family. I'm really loving this one. I think this is a few weeks old, number 5. I haven't gotten around to reading. These are all the ones I picked up today, actually. I picked up Betty and Veronica, Friends Forever. It's All Relative, a series of short stories about Betty and Veronica meeting different weird relatives. I've really liked these one-shot Betty and Veronica's that I read with my daughter. And they usually have Dan Parent artwork. And I don't really know who the writer is, but it seems like they work really well in these 4 or 5 page stories. Chaos and Comics is here. And it's confusing. Chaos and Comics, I follow 2 of you on Twitter. One is called Chris Sarda and one is called Chaos and Comics. I get all turned around with the 2 of you on Twitter. Comics on the Mind. Never met anyone who didn't like Saga. They're in the closet, but now they're coming out and they're going to let us know. Yeah, Dollhouse is one of my favorite. There's a lot of good horror comics out right now, and that's one of them. Then I've been hearing, I think maybe mostly from, I'm not sure, but I definitely remember Bueller with comics with Bueller, and Bullseye Bob Everything Comics talking about Kill Lock, and my shop had all 3 of the first 3 issues. So since it was farewell to the shop, I just decided to pick up all of those. I'm curious about it. I think it's about criminal robots in some future. Looks like it has kind of a painted style, but people I've seen on YouTube really liked it, so I'm hoping I will like it too. And I'm a big sci-fi fan, so. And then I've been amazed to notice, because all of the what were they called? The something New Age of Heroes from DC, all of them were canceled, but somehow the Terrifics is still going. And I had followed it maybe for the first 12 issues and then dropped off. I thought maybe I should dip back in and see why it's still going. But they only had 2 issues on the shelves at my shop. So I just grabbed those. I hope it'll be enough. They're written by Jean Luen Yang, who seems generally like a good writer. I read his new Superman, his Chinese Superman comic, and like that, at least when the art was good. Then the art got bad and then I dropped it. So I decided to give the Terrifics another chance. I'm just amazed they're still around. That's a fun cover for their 25th issue, which of course costs more. Little creases in it though, unfortunately. Yes, Early Tim. Hopefully you can find those Betty and Veronica books. One of the good things about them is, since they're themed like fairy tales or Halloween stories, they're not just the endless repetition of the love triangle between Betty, Veronica, and Archie. It gives them more variety. And then I thought, I had dropped off a Detective Comics, but I'm always wanting more good Batman. So let's try Detective Comics again. So I grabbed a run of recent issues again off the shelf at the store before he closes. So I've got 118. That's a nice cover. And it's Pete Tomasi, so I want to give him another chance. Batman at the Stake, getting a hot crotch there. And 1020, The Return. That's a very cool cover too. Although my daughter got very grossed out when she saw that cover. She does not like the gory covers. And the world is much freer with putting gore on the covers rather than just leaving it to the insides anymore. So this looks like a continuation of a Two-Face story. Two-Face was never one of my favorite villains, but. And I grabbed a Usagi Yojimbo Color Classic. Again, I was going to just wait for trade on these, but in the spirit of buying more comics today, I got that. And I thought in my rush, I meant to get the Classics #2, but instead I got now an extra copy of the regular Usagi Yojimbo #2, which is currently one of my favorite comics, this new color run on Usagi Yojimbo. Again, talking about black and white comics, I never really I never really could parse his art that well when it was in black and white. And with it color, I really can appreciate all that he's doing. Like fight scenes and things like that are much easier to follow in the color. Because he was not using gray tones and hashing and stuff. It's all lines. Chris Sarda said, I thought I slowed down a bit, then came right back. Yeah, my real Twitter is for everything else. Chaos and Comics is for chaos and also comics. Good night, Terrence. Yeah, it's late at night for you. It's getting late for me. It's 11:49. Terrence lives in the middle of the continent, so I think he's 2 hours different from me. Shirley Tim says, I think the Kill Luck artist is the same artist as the guy doing Transformers Galaxies, which was amazing. I hadn't heard about that. I haven't really paid attention to people talking about Transformers, for better or worse. Maybe I should look into Transformers Galaxy. That sounds cool. The new detective stuff is really good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. So I'm glad I'm jumping back on there. And you're also a fan of Usagi. That's great. Weird Dad. Hello, Weird Dad. Late to the party. What's up, everybody? Yeah, so I've been just randomly chatting. I did have a guest on, and then he had to leave suddenly. I think because his baby woke up. And Weird Dad, I don't know if I subbed to you, so I'm going to have to check on that. It's almost 3 o'clock where Shirley Tim is, so I assume you are on the East Coast of the U.S. in the time zone 3 hours away from me. I don't know what else I have to show. I've got this BCW box that I picked up. So, yeah, I think I'm going to kind of wind it up. Weird Dad doesn't create content. Well, I'm glad you're here and commenting. I like your logo with Mickey about to make some magical brooms do some work for him, I'm guessing. So anyway, thanks to everyone who's joined me. Surly Tim, Comics on the Mind, has been here for just about the whole show. Chaos and Comics, Comic Crack, Gore Vidal. Let's see who else. Joshua Hayes. A lot of you newer people, if there are newer people watching, or some of you in the chat may not know Joshua Hayes. I mean, he has amazing videos where he mostly talks about Batman. He often is called Bat Josh, but he's a really great comic book reviewer. It'd be great to look back at some of his older comics, and he just had older videos, and he just had a video out this week that was a lot of fun to watch. Gore Vidal was here. Anyone else? I'm sorry if I'm missing anybody. Oh, and where did you go? Sylvia P., who is new to me and likes Ahoy Comics, so I really appreciate that. So anyway, really happy at the turnout here. For me, 9 people at different times is plenty to chat with, and everyone has left lots of great comments. Let's see. Gore says, if I did a video discussing why I dislike Saga, the reasonable people here would respectfully disagree with me, but I would get reactionary viewers who hate it for the wrong reasons. Hey, but you'd get more views. Why Saga sucks, or something like that. Or Saga is for degenerate morons. You know, titling your video is all about how you get the views. And Surly Tim would like to see it. You'd have at least one person just totally happy if you eviscerate Saga. And I could take the pro and con side on Saga. I mean, I don't know what your cons are on it, but I could find reasons not to like it, but I do like it. Okay, everyone, have a good night. I'll try to do some more live shows in the coming weeks and figure out how to put out invitations to more people. What I've done mostly in the past is invite people who are on Twitter, because I can send the link to the direct message in Twitter. And a lot of my older comic book friends are on Twitter, not all of them. Newer people tend to do Instagram, and I don't think I can send the link to Instagram. So then I would need people's emails. Anyway, I'll discuss that again later sometime. But have a good night, everyone.